I'm a typical ex-detective Aussie male, likes a drink, likes the footy, loves his wife and family, and in view of everything, really loves life. I'd always thought of myself as totally bulletproof and invincible, capable of doing a lot of things. I've seen so many things in my many years of policing that you become immune to almost everything, to be quite honest, except those things that affect you personally. I'm one of the very lucky people who've been given extra time. I was first diagnosed with the hokum heart and the enlarged heart muscle, but again I was so, in my mind, so physically fit, I found it very difficult to accept. I have a perfectly normal heart, except that there is an electrical fault underlying it, and that electrical fault can cause the heart to stop.
I think the signs were there. The signs were there just before he had the surgery, when he started blacking out. I mean, someone of Gary's size and fitness doesn't just fall down. There's got to be a reason. Gary was in denial, and he actually said to me, I know my body better than anybody else, and I know there's nothing wrong with me. And in the end, I just told him that I wasn't able to live with knowing that every time he walked out the door, he may not come back in again. And it just wasn't a way that I wanted to live.
They said that I needed to be fitted immediately with a defibrillator implant, and that if I didn't, at any second my heart could stop. It might stop in 5 minutes, it might stop in 30 years. The only alternate was, in my words, to follow an ambulance around for the rest of my life so someone could do CPR. Well, I had the first defib put in, and I took a week off work, and then it was important that I get back to work fairly quickly.
I mean, the week after the surgery was done, he was back out chopping trees, climbing hills, mowing lawns, basically total denial. And I think he was in denial, and he was trying to prove a point that he didn't need it. And during that 3 years period of time, that was valid.
I realised in my inner self that something was terribly, terribly wrong. I felt myself drifting into a coma. Then I was gone for a couple of seconds, and then bang, orange lights, bright lights, pain in the chest, enough energy to shout out a terrified Susie at the top of my voice, couple of seconds of being a startled rabbit or a stunned mullet, and then suddenly everything was back to normal. And I realised that my defibrillator had gone off. When
the device went off, Slade was 11. It would have actually been him that would have found his father. For him to have lost his father, that would have just devastated his life. Subsequent to the incident, it was a real eye-opener to us. I mean, I'd always believed Gary needed it, but it was still the first time we'd really had that total proof that there, but for the grace of Medtronics in this case, Gary wouldn't be here. I'd be a widow, I'd have a young son, I'd be trying to do all of those things, and I wouldn't have Gary by my side, and that's an undeniable fact of life.
Every second now to me, my life is precious. If it wasn't for Medtronic, I'd be dead, my son wouldn't have a father, and my wife would be a widow. It's that simple.
My husband and I, because we both got married later in life, we decided that we'd try for children almost straight away, basically. And unfortunately, nothing was happening. In actual fact, when I found out that I was diabetic, I asked my endocrinologist if it was possible to have babies, and she said, yeah, sure enough, there's lots of women out there who are type 1 diabetic and can have children. So I was pregnant in 2007, and we were a little bit concerned because my hormones were going haywire, and with my sugar readings, of course, that brought that all over the place. I was low and I was quite high. I finally made it to 19 weeks and I was quite happy. Unfortunately, I did lose the baby and devastated with the whole ordeal. We then gave time for my body to recuperate, and my husband, keen on having children, decided, you know, let's give it a go again. I did experience quite a numerous amounts of hypos. My husband living with me obviously knew, and he could tell by just looking. He said, you know, at my face, he said my face would become quite pale. One evening I was in a fetal position and I became in a fetal position with my hands and my legs curled up like that, and he said that the reason why he woke up was that I was gagging and making some grueling noises, and if I hadn't done that he would have slept right through it. And he woke up and found me all sweaty. Prior to the Medtronic pump, I was giving myself insulin and it would give it to me straight away, and I found that for me that was too much. Whereas with the pump, it releases it slowly. And one of the advantages of being on the pump is that you could eat whatever you like. I have now better readings. So it's like getting into a new car. You have to learn about all of its devices. I finally was lucky enough to fall pregnant. Motherhood means being extremely patient, organised, having a good sense of humour, and general well-being, because if you're not well, you can't support and help your children. So yeah, I've got my own now that I can spoil and love to death and have them hopefully reciprocate as well. I love it. I don't want to give anything up. I'm getting all teary now because I can understand my mum saying, you know what, when you become a mother, you'll understand. And I do now understand what mum says. Without Medtronic, I wouldn't be here with two beautiful babies and a happy husband.
My condition is generalised torsion dystonia. I remember when I was about 6.5 or so, I was getting a lot of pains and aching in my legs, and then one day on the way to school my legs just gave way and I said to Mum, I can't go any further. My legs just can't hold me up. And so I guess that's when we started to look into something that was serious and not just growing pain. For about the first 3 years was the worst, because I was young and I was energetic and I wanted to be out there kicking the football and riding my bike, and I loved basketball. I got my first wheelchair and I remember that day vividly. There's absolutely no way I was going to get into that wheelchair, and I kicked and I screamed and I put on this massive fight with Granddad, and I think that was the hardest part about it all, was realising that I'm going into a wheelchair and this is it, this is what I'm going to be like for the rest of my life. When people look at me, I thought that they were thinking, oh, what a freak, what a weirdo. They kind of stayed away from me. I felt kind of alone at school. High school, I didn't have a huge amount of people around. Things kind of got better and better. My dribbling stopped, my spasms stopped. I could lie still for probably the first time in years. Being able to stand up and walk I don't think I've ever been able to describe it. I don't think I ever will be able to describe it because it's something that most people just take for granted. I remember, I think it was my sister's birthday. I was looking at the playground across the road, and I was just like, I wonder if I could walk that far. And before the surgery, I couldn't walk any more than a couple of feet without stumbling and falling over. So I got to the playground, and it was about probably 50 or 80 metres, and that was just incredible. I hadn't walked like that for 12 years or so. Every guy wants to drive a car. If I could do everything else, I could get my licence as well. And the first time I drove a car, it's just an unbelievable feeling because I never imagined myself driving a car. Without Medtronic, I'd be in respite, away from my family, and that's the one thing I hated. I did it a few times, and every time my parents walked out the door, I just burst into tears because I didn't want to be different. I could probably write a book on what I could do now.